I caught my wife with another man, and it cost me 99. On a prison farm in Georgia, close to the Florida line. Well, I've been here for 2 long years. I finally made the warden my friend. And so he sentenced me to a life of ease, taking care of old Red. Now old Red, he's the damnedest dog that I've ever seen. Got a nose that can smell a 2-day trail. He's a 4-legged tracking machine. You can consider yourself mighty lucky to get past the gators and the quicksand beds. But all these years that I've been here, ain't nobody got past Red. And the warden sang, come on somebody, why don't you run? Old Red's itching to have a little fun. Get my lantern, get my gun. Red'll have you treat for the morning come.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming today, and I know the family appreciates you being here and supporting them. I'm going to have a very informal service today, so family's going to lead the service, and we're going to kind of just turn this place over to you. And but I do want to thank you all for coming and get this started. So.
I want to thank everybody also, and I'm gonna try to make it through this one. I need tissue for sure. Just a few things I just want to share about Dylan. he was always a happy baby from like day one. He was just, as soon as he could lift that little head up, he was just smiling and his little head's bobbing, because his brothers always picked on him about having a big head, so it's hard for him to hold it up, but he did it, and it's always smiling. And he continued to be like that. He was always such a kind young man. He always stuck up for his friends in school, even if it meant he got in trouble. And especially his friends that were of other colors, because he didn't see color. He didn't have a prejudice bone in his body. And he just loved everybody. And he told me one time, "Mom, I want to be a doctor." And he said, "But not for the money. I want to be a doctor because I want to help people." And one of my funniest stories about him is he was so sweet. He wouldn't hit other kids, and he was never a bully. And he came home one time, and his kids had hit him, and I was sick of him coming home saying the kids were picking on him because he was so sweet. And I said, "Dylan, why would you let them hit you?" He goes, "Well, because, Mommy, you told me not to hit." And I said, "I did tell you that." I said, "But if somebody else hits you first and they're being mean to you, you kick their ass." Plain and simple. And Dylan would always, when he got older, and I would tell that story, at 6'5", 230 pounds with tattoos everywhere, he's like, "That's when my whole life changed." He was so handsome, as you can see, even the baby. Everybody all the girls loved him, and all the guys wanted to be his friend, because who doesn't want a friend who's 6'5" and arms like this, you know what I mean? I'd be like, "Oh yeah, we're best friends, aren't we?" His passion, obviously, was football, as you can see. That's his little boy, Dominic. Spitting image, except for it was holiday or something, he had family over, and Dylan had this really colorful jacket on. And Tim looks up at him, which most people did, and says, kind of rubbed his arm and said, "Oh, I bet all the gay guys love your jacket." And without even blinking an eye, Dylan goes, "Oh, you like it then?" I mean, you had to be there, but it was much funnier in person. And as you can see from some of the pictures, he had long hair, a lot of tattoos. He was my rebel. But sorry, Dylan, but he was just a big teddy bear. He was harmless. He was so kind and loving and funny, and I miss him more than you could ever know. All my friends adored him. Anybody that's ever met him adored him. And then, of course, he had his beautiful baby, Dominic. That was Juliana, his girlfriend from Brazil. He just loved Dominic. He was such a good daddy. He would change his diapers all the time. He never tried to push it off on anybody else. Even when he played Xbox, he had Dominic sitting right in his legs. I would always keep looking down at him and talking to him and smiling. And he was just, for the first time being a daddy, he was just a natural. It came natural to him. I've been pretty much in denial to this point, so obviously today's going to be a rough day, but I'm going to try to make it. But it's really becoming real now, and it doesn't feel good. And thank you again for all you guys for coming. Some of my family and anybody that wants to come up and share a memory, more than welcome to.
if I could do this. Dylan meant the world to me. As Nathan and Paul know, they were this big. They were part of my family for a long time. I was part of theirs. We drifted apart in over the years, but I never stopped caring. Dylan and I drifted apart for a few years, but we became close again, as you can see. He was my everything. I would have done anything under the sun for him. And I tried. I think we all tried to do what we could. Took him fishing one time, and he caught his bass. I told him, I said, "Here, Dylan, hold it." And I won't say what he said, but he said no. I said, "Just pinch it and hold it, it won't jump." So he does, and you can see the picture where he's like this, afraid of it. And he wasn't afraid of much. Then he calls one of his friends and says, "Hey, bro, you never guess what I'm doing right now," because he was a city boy, just like I was. Dylan takes after me in a lot of ways, and Michelle can probably verify that. We're both stubborn, hard-headed, didn't want to listen to nobody.
Yep, but he looks like me, though.
I'm sorry about that. You know, and I just wish things could have been different all my life. But as everybody knows in this room, sometimes things happen. I loved him with all my heart. And thank you for coming.
Anybody who knows me knows I'm not good at this happy stuff. So one of my favorite things to do with Dylan was to tease him about how he was always the favorite. Mom always has the bigger picture of him than me or Paul or Nathan. They can attest to it. They know it's true. I love to play sports with Dylan, tackle him, play with the kids. I always won because I knew his weakness, which was he was ticklish, and I exploited it to my full benefit. But like my mom and Joe have already said, Dylan would give you the shirt off his back, and he would do it if it meant that he had to go without. He housed people, he fed them, he did everything for other people, even if it meant that he got in trouble or he didn't have what he needed. But he always had everybody's back. You knew if you went to Dylan, he would handle it. And I'm just gonna miss him. See, he had my back.
All right, I'm going to try to get through this. My wife's in the back, and she'll attest that I'm normally a really great speaker in front of people. I've got a radio voice when I want to. But I wrote something down because I wanted to be able to get out everything I wanted to say. So it just may take me a couple tries. But spent a lot of time wondering how I will deal with loss. It's hard enough wondering how I'll hold up losing my mom or my dad, because that's the order you expect it to happen. Losing a little brother is not something you can prepare yourself for. When I got the news from my mom, my immediate reaction was, "No, you're wrong. You know, somebody mixed something up. It's not Dylan." This is the same Dylan that I shared a room with as kids, where we had a fort under our bed because we had two beds that were mirrored and they're sitting about 4 feet off the ground. So we were sleeping up here and we would move our dressers and desks and all sorts of the shit that went underneath and build a fort under there. And that way, if we wanted to get into some stuff, she couldn't see it. It's the same Dylan that I'd stay up with all night to play video games. I remember very clearly a night that we had finally progressed far enough in a game called Driver 2, which I don't even know if that was for the first or second PlayStation. It's an older one. But it was a 2-disc game. To show you how old it is. They didn't have hard drives on the consoles, so and Dylan and I would spend countless hours playing that together. And we had finally progressed far enough in the game where it just went black and it says, please insert disc 2. And that was like, I don't even know if we beat the game. I think we did, but who cares? Like, we made it to disc 2, and that was enough. And I remember that moment where we were ecstatic because it was like, holy shit, we did it. And we would take turns playing that game and others, but we would, if one of us it was a driving game mostly, and if one of us was doing really well, I don't even know how it started. I think something from a commercial, but we'd start cheering, hey, oh, let's go. And it was so stupid, but that was our thing that we did. Maybe superstition, it was kind of like, oh, like, we're so close, you're so close, or I'm so close, so let's do our stupid song and hopefully it helps. Which it evidently did. Dylan and I played countless games together over the years, and it was something we both really loved doing together as brothers. And he bought me a game years ago called Champions of Norath, which I had never heard of. And I quickly dismissed it as a silly purchase from a little brother, and it was kind of like, oh, cool, thanks. I'm not going to touch that. Turns out Champions of Norath was pretty freaking cool, and Dylan and I would play it on repeat, and both got really into it. And as my mom will tell you, and Paul probably as well, when I was a teenager, I wouldn't shut up about this thing called a mini moto, which is a little motorcycle probably about this big with a 40-something cc engine, and I thought they were the coolest thing in the world. And finally for Christmas, I got one. And it was one of the greatest gifts I'd received in my life at that point, and I thought it was so freaking cool. So excited to, fuel it up and tighten everything that needs to be tightened and take it out for a ride. And after my initial ride, my mom was like, let Dylan have a try. And I remember thinking like, okay, cool, but hurry up, it's mine, And then not long after that, after she saw Dylan's expression and how much he enjoyed it, she got him his own. And I remember thinking, that's freaking bullshit. Like, sorry, Anastasia. But
She's heard worse.
yeah, I was just like, well, that was my big gift, and he already got his crap, and what the hell? But I wasn't realizing in that moment that I then had someone to ride with. And, when I would go down and visit her over the summer, we would do it for countless hours. Those are some of my favorite moments with him. So I'm glad he ended up getting one because it was so freaking fun. And yeah, I mean, the look at his face, I get it. If we had iPhones back then, we'd have hard drives full of just stupid videos of us riding those around. It's obviously hard to talk about, but I got 2 more stories. On New Year's, when Dylan was probably around 12, she went out, and I think you were doing something, so I ended up watching Dylan and a handful of his friends, and you told me, I was 19 probably at the time, and you told me, like, well, there's some beer in the fridge. If you want to have one, that's okay. And it was Bud Light with lime. And I grabbed a can, and all of Dylan's friends, probably 5, 6 of them, they would not shut up about, well, my dad lets me drink, my dad lets me do this, and blah, blah, blah. And I got really sick of it, and I basically was just like, listen, Dylan is my brother, he's my responsibility. If he wants to try it, he can, but the rest of you, shut the hell up, leave me alone. So of course, Dylan, knowing that he's got his friends around, he's thinking, like, yeah, I want to try it, this would be cool. Like I said, he's, I think, 12. So I said, all right, before you try it, and I went and got my digital camera at the time, so all the photos are blurry. But I have a picture of Dylan holding his Bud Light with lime like this, so proud and excited about what he's going to do. And I'm like, okay, go ahead, take your big sip. So takes a big gulp, and I tried to get play-by-play, watching the progression of his face going from enthusiasm to regret. And he didn't spit it out, he swallowed it, but that immediately was followed by, that's nasty, ah! And I just kept taking photos, because he would try to maintain composure and then, ah! And I've got all those blurry photos still. And for the rest of the night, none of those kids bothered me about beer again. And my last story, obviously we've all got a lot, but the last one I'll touch on here. I think Dylan was probably around 8, and we were at my grandma Vi's house in Binghamton, the really little house. And I had recently gotten a video camera, and I was obsessed with the thing, so I'm recording everything I do, and I'm making claymation videos and whatever. Anyway, Dylan's in the shower, and for the record, I didn't record anything below the waist, but Dylan's in the shower, and I open the door, and I walk in, and once he sees me, he ducks behind the curtain, and I'm just laughing. I didn't say anything. I was just laughing at him. And after a minute, he just goes, I don't care, you're not filming me. And he does that, and I was. And I was laughing so hard, I couldn't even speak. But I was able to kind of nod like I am. And within a split second, he went from triumphantly standing like this to wrapped up in that shower curtain twice as hard as he was before. And I think that's one of the funniest memories I have that I can think of right now with Dylan. Because, I mean, he was always a freaking goofball. Look at this kid. You know, and that, I don't think that ever changed, really. But, you know, I've got these memories and countless more. Everybody in here has some memories of Dylan. You know, a lot of us have very different memories, different points in his life. And I hope that we can keep sharing those, because, you know, we argued a lot, as brothers do, especially like I was always closer with Dylan than Paul. Paul was always a little older and off doing stuff with his friends, and I was usually at home with Dylan playing video games or making forts or wrestling and having him go and tell my mom that I threw a couch cushion at him or something. So we were always super close, but I just have overwhelmingly good memories when I think about it. And I think the hardest part for me right now is knowing that he'll never get to meet my son, Bodie. And Bodie will never, get to really meet his Uncle Dylan. But that's why we need to keep sharing the memories for his son Dominic, for Bodie, for all of us. Me personally, I'm not religious, but I'll always have a huge part of Dylan with me. He was one of my best friends. And he had a really enormous impact on my life, and I know I did on his. And Dylan, I'm proud of you. I miss you, and I love you.
So I really don't have anything prepared, but when Mom and Kenny, Anastasia, Nick, and I came down to bring Dylan and Grammy Shell up here, it was the longest drive of my life. Still feels like it was. But I didn't know it at the time, but I was going to meet my older brother figure, because I never really had that. And he very, very quickly became like the older brother I never had, and made a massive impact on my life. And some lessons that he kind of taught me without realizing it were to enjoy every day to your fullest, and help others as often as you can, and to never stop trying to uplift not only yourself but others with you. And I think that if you were to ask him, I think he'd tell you he lived a good life. And we should all aspire to live every day like it's your last, because you never know.
Hello, everyone. My name's Bear. I met Dylan about a year and a half ago. We were roommates of sorts. The day we met, took an instant liking to him. Good head on his shoulders, old soul, very put together, no bullshit kind of guy. Loved it. Showed me around where we were staying. Just from that moment on, we bonded. I mean, there's a picture, I keep seeing it. There's a picture of him standing in front of some urinals. He's wearing one of these. We swore oaths of brotherhood to each other. We protected each other, looked out for each other. He's one of the best men I ever met. For as old as he was, you wouldn't think. You know, he's 20-something. 25 years old. He told me how old he was. I was like, you're full of shit. I don't believe you, man. He goes, no, look. And he was showing me his paperwork and stuff. I'm like, no, that's fake. That's fake. You're not that old. We worked out every day together. We ate every day together. I mean, the only thing we didn't do together was gamble, because I hate gambling. But him, I mean, it's cloudy outside. He didn't even go outside, bet. No, it's cloudy outside, bet. No, it's cloudy. No, it was ridiculous. That's the one thing I stayed away from. I didn't have the patience for that kind of stuff. We were talking last night when we were eating about him cooking, certain things, where we resided, there weren't very many options to make stuff with. So he was designated cook most of the time. And I remember the first time he made me a big ass burrito. I fell in love with it. I almost cried. It's great. One of the greatest things. One of the greatest things I'd ever eaten with just a bunch of crap in it. Everybody, you guys were saying, how protective he was of his friends, and he's just stuck up for the guys that couldn't stick up for themselves, that kind of thing. I mean, we kind of made a habit of doing that on a day-to-day basis because the place we did reside in wasn't very nice to anyone or everyone. He talked a lot about, you guys. I met everybody for the first time yesterday. He talked a lot about his nephews, talked about his sister, his brothers, his mom. Tell me freaking stories about, the first time he went and hung out with his dad. It's like, yeah, man, it's badass. I'm like, what'd you guys do? We haven't gambled. What the fuck? So it was like best bonding experience ever. It was great. It's just, there's a lot. His memory to me will last forever, and I hope it does for all of you. There's some things about him that I don't feel comfortable saying or speaking on in front of, children and stuff like that, but he did some really great things, and I'd share if anybody asked, but I don't believe this is a setting for that. But, yeah. Thanks.
As you guys can tell in your little memory books of him, he had that love for mashed potatoes, and the only one he'd share them with was me. I remember one time from stories that I've heard that one time I got a chocolate bar or something out of my grandma's bag and just brought it to him.
She knew Uncle Dylan would be the only person that would share food with her. His food, he didn't share his food with anybody. So if she got food, she would run to Uncle Dylan to be her co-conspirator. So when she stole the bar out of Grandma Michelle's bag, she ran down the hall screaming, "Uncle, Uncle!" And they shared it. He wouldn't take pickles.
He was probably my favorite person to be with. I remember another time when I was having a nap or something, I can't remember. And all I remember knowing that I did was I was screaming, or I wasn't screaming, I was saying, go make me a sandwich or something to him while he was playing video games, and he turned to me and I was dead asleep.
Do you remember what he said?
Well, can you...
It was 11:30 at night, and he turned to her and he said, "I'm not making you a damn sandwich." And then he realized that she was talking in her sleep.
It was probably one of my favorite times, and if you look up there in one of them, there's me as a baby in my footy pajamas, just trying to get the food.
Okay, break.
I only knew Dylan really about 2.5 days, sadly. I met Michelle, one of the most beautiful ladies ever, on a job. We bonded immediately. And she made a little comment about her last baby being her challenging child, as I recall, something like that. And I said, oh, I had one of those too. And before I knew it, we were sharing stories about the same apartment complex all of our boys rented in Sheridan, Oregon. And through our bonding, just in a week's time, I believe it was a beautiful friendship, sharing our sons who'd been down on the same road, identically, actually. And I felt an incredible bond, almost like God was leading me to be an extra mentor in Dylan's life, as my son had for 5 years in Sheridan, Oregon. And I was so excited to share Dylan with my son. It was almost like another immediate connection with Michael and Dylan. And it's almost like they knew each other in a roundabout sort of way. I was really excited to share my son with Dylan in that amount of time, which I did. And we conversed back and forth. And I just shared from my heart as a mama, because Michelle and I were able to with each other. And I felt in those 2.5 days, just in the short amount of time I had, what a wonderful young man he was. And I encouraged him, and I knew and felt in my heart he was just going to do awesome when he got out. And I told him that he was. And, you know, when us mamas get involved, things happen. And as devastated as I was, my son Michael was too, because he was going to somehow get involved with Dylan. So in a roundabout sort of way, Dylan was blessed with his family. Just Michelle talking about his sister, his brothers. He was one blessed young man, his dad, his mom. Everybody that knew him, it's pretty evident. But we don't know why these things happen. But he left a mark in the world, is what I feel in the 2.5 days that I knew him. And as lucky as he was to have all of you, you were all lucky to have him. So I just wanted to share that.
Well, since there's not a lot of people here that actually knew Dylan, there's not a lot more stories to share. So everybody can kind of, you know, if you can stick around a little bit, we can mingle a little bit more, maybe get acquainted, meet anybody that you haven't met yet, and just having probably some more tears and some more hugging and some more laughing for that beautiful baby. Wow, no mother should have to go through this. And I just want to thank some of you I was not expecting, which was a beautiful surprise. So I appreciate everybody coming. That means a lot. I'm glad that we got to share some of our stories about Dylan. Sorry, Paul, I know you didn't like that picture of you. As you can see, he's changed quite a bit. He always said he looked like a lesbian in the picture. And they almost look like they have makeup on. They were so tan from being on the beach all the time. He loved his Nathan. One other thing I was thinking about, we surprised him one time, and Nathan came to visit, and of course, Nathan's been, even though Dylan was 6'5", he wasn't that tall yet. He was probably like 12 maybe, I'm saying. So he was probably about like that. And I surprised him that Nathan came, and we got Nathan there. I had a friend pick him up from the airport, and Nathan was like standing against the wall, and I said, Dylan, so-and-so's at the door, just to get his attention. And he said, well, can you just tell him I'm busy or something? And I go, no, you tell him. So Dylan went out to answer the door, which nobody was really at the door, of course, and Nathan was standing like this, and Dylan came walking around the corner, and the second, like, there was no hesitation whatsoever. He just walked around the corner and went, and just wrapped his arms around Nathan, because Nathan was still towered over him at the time. And he just wrapped his arms around Nathan and just stood there and cried. And it was so funny that he didn't even like just walk by. It's almost like subconsciously he knew. He just walked in, bam, hugged him. But yeah, I mean, I could go on for days for stories. I hear, like, my boys tell me stories of the things they did with Dylan, the beer and stuff I didn't know about, of course. I did not. After the fact, maybe. I'd be like, okay, you can let Dylan have one, but not his friends, okay? I think, Paul, I don't know, one of you guys trying to pierce the other one's ear. I don't know if it was you trying to pierce his. Okay. Okay. Yeah. And I always thought they were like my good ones, and then they tell me stuff they did when they got older. I'm like, what? They're like, yeah, Dylan got caught. We were smart enough. But, yeah. Oh, Tanya's got something here. Joe's, yours must be up. Yours is probably up there. Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess we can just kind of mingle, and like I said, I'll introduce anybody that hasn't already been introduced, and thanks again, everybody, for coming. It's going to be the hardest, longest day of my life. That was his first day of kindergarten.
Me. Says, the moment that you left me, my heart split in two. One side filled with memories, and the other side died with you. I often lay awake at night when the world's fast asleep and take a walk down memory lane with tears upon my cheek. Remembering you is easy. I do it every day. But missing you is a heartache that never goes away. I hold you tightly within my heart, and you will always remain. As my life goes on without you, it will never be the same.
And folks, I think we're at a point today where we're going to conclude the service. So you are welcome to be in the funeral home and visit amongst yourselves for as long as you need. And I want to thank you again for coming here and supporting the family. Thank you.